AEW star Danhausen posts a cryptic message on social media about his wrestling future, possibly hinting at an exit from All Elite Wrestling. More details on Giulia to WWE, particularly now that she has suffered this fractured wrist injury. TKO is looking to change the WWE business plan so that they receive site fees for both Raw and SmackDown television tapings and not just premium live events. Speaking of Raw, we have the ratings for Monday night's episode. An NXT North American Championship triple threat match is seemingly set for the upcoming Battleground and premium live events. The OC have their eyes set on the NXT tag team titles. An NXT tag team splits up last night. More names have qualified for the Women's North American Championship ladder match at Battleground, and Sonya Deville, she returned on Raw, and reportedly her return was a surprise to many backstage. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Danhausen and a possible AEW exit for the former Ring of Honor star. Absent AEW star Danhausen gave a cryptic address on social media. The former Ring of Honor star has not been seen on AEW programming since December last year, having only just returned previously to reunite with Orange Cassidy during the Thanksgiving special episode of Dynamite. However, he has continued to work on the independent circuit and even held the GCW World title, only to lose it to Blake Christian because of Matt Cardona moments later. Danhausen has added fuel to speculation that he could be on the outs from AEW after his most recent Instagram post, which we can get up on the screen right now. You can see it right there. It says, quote, "I answer to none. I belong nowhere. I believe in nothing except myself." Now, when it comes to Danhausen, he signed with AEW in January of 2022 after Ring of Honor went on hiatus in December of 2021. At the time of his signing, he was one of the most popular names on the independent circuit thanks to his comedic interactions with the likes of CM Punk at conventions, and he was immediately aligned with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. He's had two unsuccessful title shots in AEW, first an FTW title match against Ricky Starks, which he lost in a minute and a half, and then at Revolution last year when he and Orange Cassidy challenged for the AEW Tag Team Championships in a fatal four-way. It was during that match that Danhausen suffered a torn pectoral muscle, which kept him sidelined until November last year. His last involvement in the company thus far came at AEW World's End in December as part of a battle royal for a cash-in contract at the TNT Championship, which was later won by Killswitch. So what are your thoughts on Danhausen? Do you think he's set to leave AEW? And if he does, where do you think he'll end up next? Do you think he'll go to TNA Wrestling? Do you think he'll go to WWE, join his close friend CM Punk there? Do you think he'll just be on the indies in GCW and other companies? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Now, let's talk about Giulia and WWE because a lot's been going on for the former Stardom champion in the last few weeks and days. Now, Fightful Select's Corey Brennan has learned some new details on the upcoming WWE arrival of Giulia. On May 21st, it was announced that Giulia had suffered a fractured wrist and would be out of action indefinitely. Following the news breaking, Brennan says he reached out to NXT and WWE sources, and with those that they spoke to, noting that WWE remained hopeful that Giulia will be healed in time for NXT Heatwave. Brennan has further learned that after previously reporting the belief within NXT that Giulia would be in a title match at the event, with WWE still currently targeting an NXT Women's title match with Roxanne Perez for the event on July 7th. However, it was stressed to Brennan that these plans are not set in stone and could change due to Giulia's Marigold obligations as well as her current injury. Now, speaking of Marigold, Brennan has confirmed previous reports that Giulia will remain available to use with the promotion following her starting with NXT and has been booked for Marigold's Summer Destiny event on July 13th. Giulia noted on May 21st that despite her injury, she still plans to compete on July 13th. Sources in Japan that Fightful Select say they have spoken to said the match with Sareee was expected and should not impact Giulia appearing with WWE before then. Now, Giulia is expected to lead the next class of talent to report to the WWE Performance Center, which is also expected to include names from the recent Australia tryouts. Regarding her presentation, it has been stressed to Brennan that Giulia was signed for who she is and that WWE will not look to fix something that isn't broken. Brennan has also learned more about Giulia's backstage visits to WWE during WrestleMania weekend, with Giulia being outgoing and polite to NXT talent and higher-ups alike, having a lengthy conversation with Shawn Michaels at NXT Stand and Deliver. In asking about Giulia's English skills, many were worried about the language barrier here. Brennan was also told that the language barrier isn't as big of an issue as prior to Triple H taking over creative of WWE, with one source pointing out Io Sky, Asuka, Kairi Sane and more speaking their native language on WWE programming. That being said, WWE remains impressed by Giulia's commitment to learning the language. If we get any more details on Giulia and her imminent WWE arrival, we'll let you know in a future video. Now, this was a story that was kind of spoken about the other day. We got a lot more details on this when it comes to, once again, the changing business approach from TKO Group Holdings when it pertains to WWE tapings, events, and premium live events. WWE is seeking to make a major change to its business model for Raw and SmackDown, which has been a regular feature of its premium live events. In recent comments at the JP Morgan Global Technology, Media and Communications Conference, TKO COO Mark Shapiro said that, quote, attendance, site fees and prices, end quote, are key performance indicators, while he talked about packaging UFC and WWE events. He would note that the site fee doesn't have to be all cash, but WWE has to be, quote, heavily incentivized to bring events to a city. Now, Dave Meltzer has provided further insight into the site fees plans on Wrestling Observer Radio, saying, quote, right now they're just getting them for pay-per-view shows and not even necessarily every pay-per-view show in the United States. Although now that the B shows have been pretty much moved overseas, they're getting site fees for those shows, and the A shows are mostly going to be stadium shows. Maybe Survivor Series will probably still be an arena show, but the idea is they're working on getting site fees. They already do for Royal Rumble, SummerSlam and WrestleMania, and they're working on getting them for Money in the Bank and Survivor Series, and now the next step is to get communities to pay them to bring Raw and SmackDown tapings in. Hey, more power to them if they can do it. I don't know how many people, as far as tourists, flock to a city on a Monday or a Friday when Raw and SmackDown are in town. They do come in for pay-per-views, but if they can get it just to come to your city, they're going to want your city to pay. And it's a great business to be in. It takes away all the risk of running shows if you're getting paid to come in, that's for sure. They're giving you the building for free. You're going to get paid to come in. You're going to get other benefits from the city, promotional and everything like that. They'll help you promote your event because it's incumbent on them for the event to be a success, because the whole idea of spending that money is to bring people into the city and come to restaurants and stay at hotels and all of that. We'll see if they can pull it off. If they do, that's transformative. Now, of course, for example here, in 2023, WWE Backlash was hosted by Puerto Rico, with it being reported that WWE was paid $1.5 million to bring the PLE to the region. WWE has already held Elimination Chamber in Australia, Backlash in France, outside of the United States this year, with King and Queen of the Ring going to be in Saudi Arabia this weekend, Clash at the Castle coming up in Scotland, Money in the Bank in Canada, Bash in Berlin in Germany, also on the calendar in the coming months. So do you think that WWE can get to a point where they're being paid to bring Raw and SmackDown to a specific city every single week, or would that be a step too far? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Now, speaking of Raw, we have the ratings for Monday's episode on USA Network. The Raw Go Home show for King and Queen of the Ring saw an increase in the ratings from the previous week. WrestleNomics reports that the show's overall average viewership grew by 9% from the previous week to 1.733 million viewers, the highest number for the show since the April 15 edition. The 18 to 49 key demographic also saw a bump with a 0.56 rating from the previous week's 0.53 number. The Red brand also ranked number 2 in the key demographic of all the shows on the night, slightly behind the NHL playoff game between the Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks. Raw witnessed a decline in viewership in recent weeks, but the May 20 edition of the show, overall average viewership was 7% higher than the average of the previous 4 weeks, while the key demographic for the same metric also saw an increase of 6%. This past week's Raw featured storylines to lead into this weekend's King and Queen of the Ring show, which included the semi-finals of the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments. Gunther defeated Jey Uso in the main event of the show to stamp his place in the final of the King of the Ring tournament, where he'll face either Randy Orton or Tama Tonga. Over on the women's side, new WWE main roster star Lyra Valkyria defeated Io Sky, and she will meet either Bianca Belair or Nia Jax in the final on Saturday. Now, let's also talk about NXT last night. There was another episode on the USA Network, and we got some, I guess, big developments heading into Battleground in the future. WWE NXT North American Champion Obafemi will have his hands full at the Battleground PLE on June 9. There was a triple threat match on Tuesday's edition of NXT to determine his challenger, and in a way, it did, but maybe more challenges than he expected. Gallus assaulted Josh Briggs during the triple threat match, leading to Briggs being knocked out in the ring as Wesley was crushed with a discus lariat by Joe Coffey. Lee and Coffey collapsed on Briggs' prone body, leading to a double pin and both men winning the match. Later in the show, NXT General Manager Ava made it official that Coffey and Lee would face Femi in a triple threat match at Battleground. Femi has been the NXT North American Champion since January 9th, when he dethroned Dragon Lee on NXT. Should Femi win, this will mark the second triple threat match in which Femi has defended his title. Of course, Battleground will be the first NXT event to emanate from UFC's Apex venue, which has often hosted UFC Fight Nights. The partnership marks the first real collaboration between WWE and the UFC since the two companies merged in 2023, creating TKO Group Holdings, which is owned by UFC's parent company, Endeavor. Now, speaking of NXT, we saw some main roster influence last night, and maybe these main roster stars could also be involved at Battleground in the future. On last night's airing of NXT, there was a tag team championship match featuring champions Nathan Frazer and Axiom taking on Channing Stacks Lorenzo and Luca Crucifino of the D'Angelo family. However, by the end of the bout, there would be multiple factors at play as two other tag teams crashed the match. Near the end of the match, no quarter catch crew, that being Charlie Dempsey, Damon Kemp and Miles Bourne, snuck up behind the family waging an attack. While the crew caused enough of a distraction that the champions were able to pick up a roll-up win to retain their titles, Axiom and Nathan Frazer's celebration would be short-lived. Directly after the match, they were attacked by the OC's Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, who ended up beating down the champions and holding up the NXT Tag Team Championship belts to end the segment. This could seemingly imply that we're going to be getting Axiom and Frazer versus the OC at the Battleground PLE. Now, speaking of Anderson and Gallows, when it comes to the duo, it looks like they have their sights set to retire in WWE. Of course, they had previously joined WWE in 2016 after having a long career in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They were also pillars of the Bullet Club faction and multi-time champions in the promotion. They joined WWE in 2016 and were later released in 2020, but the OC returned to WWE back in 2022 with no intention of ever leaving again. On the latest edition of Talk and Shop, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows were asked if they would retire in WWE or potentially return to Japan at some point. Anderson answered the following, saying, quote, "I romantically love Japan. I have to go back to Japan. I will go back to Japan. I miss Japan badly. I do see ourselves retiring in WWE. I see us as full brother WWE guys until the end. My answer is that we're never going to retire. It doesn't matter where. We're going back to Japan lots. It'll be fun. We have no thoughts of retiring, not even an inkling." Anderson closed by saying the following, quote, "What I'm saying is my full brain is I'm a WWE guy until I'm gone." So seemingly they have no plans on going to any other company. Now, speaking of tag teams, we saw a tag team split up last night on NXT on the USA Network as well. In the main event of last night's NXT, Lola Vice teamed with main roster partner Shayna Baszler to take on Carmen Petrovic and Natalia. In the end, Petrovic was able to pin Lola Vice to pick up the victory for her team using the classic heart attack double team finisher. After the match, when Baszler approached Lola Vice to help her up, Vice instead roundhouse kicked Baszler in the head, seemingly knocking her out, while Vice danced over her lifeless body. However, when Lola paused again on the outside of the ring to dance, the camera showed Shayna Baszler was up and ready to fight. Locking Vice in a Kirifuda clutch, Baszler was choking out Vice until she was stopped by referees. In the ensuing melee, the women would attack each other and be pulled apart multiple times before NXT General Manager Ava arrived on the scene. Ava announced that if Vice and Baszler wanted to fight, they could have one at Battleground. However, Baszler would grab the mic and demanded a specific stipulation. Baszler proposed an NXT Underground match for Battleground from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas on Sunday, June 9. Of course, Baszler has a lot of history of UFC, so it would make sense that she would be appearing at the event. Now, speaking of Battleground, we're going to be crowning the first ever Women's North American Champion at the event, and 2 more competitors have been added to the upcoming ladder match. At NXT Battleground, as I mentioned, there will be a 6-way ladder match to determine who will become the first ever NXT Women's North American Champion. On last night's airing of NXT, there were more qualifiers throughout the show. In the show's first matchup, 2 potential favourites were pitted against one another as Thea Hale took on Fallon Henley. During the match, Henley was about to introduce a steel chair, but Ridge Holland, who was at ringside with the rest of Chase U, took it away from her. However, the referee thought it was Holland who had the intentions to use it and ended up kicking Holland and the rest of Chase U out of ringside. As a result, Thea Hale did not advance, as rather Fallon Henley picked up the victory. After the bout, Hale was still alone as she was attacked by Jasmine Nix, popped up and delivered a Pele kick. In the second qualifying match, Jada Parker from OTM beat the cheerful Brynlee Reese in order to secure her spot in the ladder match as well. After the match, Booker T speculated that Idris Enofe and Malik Blade joining Reese at ringside was the moment the match stopped going in her favour. 2 spots are still to be determined as Henley and Parker joined Sol Ruka and Lash Legend, who qualified last week. And finally, Sonya Deville is back on WWE programming, and reportedly it was a surprise to a few backstage who weren't expecting to see the former Women's Tag Team Champion back on WWE TV just yet. Last competing in July last year, former Women's Tag Team Champion Sonya Deville made her long-awaited return to television on Monday's edition of Raw from Greensboro, North Carolina. Deville dropped in to surprise Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler during a backstage segment on Raw, and was seemingly eager to have a conversation with both stars. However, this was shut down by the Queen of Spades. While it's unclear what's in store for Deville from a creative standpoint, her sudden reappearance was something that not only took many fans by surprise, but also those within the company, according to Fightful Select. As detailed in a new report, Fightful note that Deville was not purposely hidden away backstage at the Greensboro Coliseum, with several sources noting that it was a pleasant surprise seeing her make a return. Despite recent reports suggesting that a return was imminent, according to Fightful, many didn't expect Deville back until mid-summer. Following their encounter with Deville backstage, Stark and Baszler went on to win a #1 contenders 4-way to become the next challengers to Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair for the Women's Tag Team Championships. But there you go, guys. Latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again.